So I find it semi-ironic slash more coincidental than ironic because um, the cover for One Piece this week is, of course, kind of Harry Potter-esque. And I find it very coincidental that it happens right after, Maggie Smith has passed away. That we've officially lost, Professor McGonagall and everything like that. This is a replica of her wand, by the way. And of course, I pulled out one of my Hogwarts shirts because I am a dork. Plus, it's appropriate for the cover page this week. But I kind of find that interesting that Oda probably had the cover page already all planned for this one anyway. And it's coincidental that it happens right after Maggie Smith has passed away. I don't know how big of a fan of Harry Potter Oda is. And he might be a big Harry Potter fan, or maybe his daughters or his wife is or something. So maybe he heard about it. And maybe he's like, yeah, well, that's a coincidence that the cover page is going to be that. So I wanted to acknowledge that we have lost Maggie Smith, we have lost Professor McGonagall, and plus her in so many other roles and all the other amazing movies and plays and everything else that she's been in over the years and everything like that through all of her amazing career and everything. Plus the Oscar she's won, at least one Oscar and one BAFTA, all of that stuff. So she's, let her rest. She's given us plenty of entertainment, and we can always go back and watch more of it. Coincidentally, this is a coincidence, she died on the same day that Michael Gambon, who played Dumbledore in the last last 6 movies, who played Dumbledore, they died on the same day 1 year apart. So, I mean, yeah. We've also lost a ton of other actors and actresses that have been in the Harry Potter movies over the years. And, for all the ones that are on the older side, we're probably going to lose more of them, sadly, and everything. But I wanted to acknowledge that for Maggie Smith. So, to the chapter review. So, actually, the cover of Shonen Jump this week is actually kind of, it's One Piece, and it's I think they're kind of promoting the card game, because there's a picture of a card with Shanks on it in the background, and we've got Luffy looking awesome here in kind of Prince style clothing, not Prince as in the musical artist, but a Prince, style type of clothing / king style type clothing and everything like that, for him wanting to be the pirate king and everything. And Oda's drawn Luffy like this multiple times, with this big cloak and everything like that, and all of this, very fancy looking Luffy, which, I mean, we've seen Luffy be fancy to a degree. I mean, in the movies, he's a little more on the fancy side at times. He got pretty dapperly dressed up for a Strong World and everything like that for the ending of that. There's, a few other bits here and there where they tend to get all the Straw Hats looking all nice and spiffy and clean and everything. So it's I like the cover there for that. And then the cover page for this one is, it is Harry Potter themed. It's Harry Potter-esque, I should say. Not necessarily 100% Harry Potter themed, but Harry Potter-esque. And it is all of the Straw Hats riding around on brooms. And there's this giant dragon in the background. Okay, most of the Straw Hats are riding around on brooms. Sanji, or Zoro, is riding on the nose of the dragon for how big this dang thing is. And it's much more of the European style dragon. Than the Japanese style that we saw with Kaido and Momonosuke. This is more along the lines of a purple version of the dragons that were at Punk Hazard. And so Zoro's kind of sitting on his nose, and he's on the dragon's nose, and then Jinbei is just kind of laying back and relaxing, just above the dragon's eyes between its horns, so that's kind of funny. And then we see all the rest of the Straw Hats, Luffy is, front and center with his broom, and all of the brooms, they don't look like the sleek kind that we saw for the Nimbus 2000 and stuff like that. They look more like they're made of like bamboo, which is the more style, I think, of the brooms that are in, Japan as opposed to England, or Europe. And so it's like bamboo style brooms, and Luffy's front and center, and they're all wearing kind of like Hogwarts-esque outfits, but instead of it being like the Hogwarts colors, it's like each of their personal colors are like the highlights. So like Luffy's got red, Zoro's got green, Nami's got orange. You get the idea. All of their like independent, like specific colors that are kind of associated with them. And they're all just riding around having fun, and Luffy's just like hanging onto his broom as it's flying. Frankie has souped up his broom, which is hilarious. And he's turned it into like a broom motorcycle. So it's kind of, I mean, like, I'm thinking that might be like a reference to like Hagrid's flying motorcycle, from the beginning of the first movie and from the beginning of the seventh movie. That's actually Sirius's motorcycle, that he gives to Hagrid. And like Frankie like souped up his broom and turned it into that. And like I like this bit because it's like Frankie, and then we have like Nami is like on her own little chair in front of him helping like steer the broom, which is adorable. And we don't get that much interaction necessarily between like Nami and Frankie. That's why I love the interaction during the Battle of Onigashima, after like Frankie shows up and like, motorcycles Big Mom in the face. And, saves Nami, and Nami just, like, hugs Frankie. I love that scene. That's just so adorable. And, like, we see that, and then we see, like, Robin's riding around on her own broom, and then we see, like, Sanji and Usopp are kind of sharing a broom, and Usopp's just, like, hanging on for dear life onto the broom as he's, like, falling, and Sanji's standing on top of the broom. And then we've got Frankie, or Brook and Chopper are sharing a broom, and the broom is just kind of going out of control. Which is kind of funny. So it's just like fun seeing all these Straw Hats in this dynamic, because this is something they would do if given the option. So going into the chapter, this is chapter 1128, titled RPG, which generally the term that it is supposed to mean is role-playing game, which is very much what is kind of going on here for the Straw Hats at the moment, or we'll find that out very shortly. Yeah, it's all fake. Everything's fake. All of Elbaf is fake. It's all fake. It's all Lego. Or at least this section of it is. This room in Elbaf is Lego. So we have, they're kind of like, Sanji's commenting on the fact of like, this can't be a dream. And Sanji's like, too many dudes around for this to be a dream. And he's holding Nami while he says this. And she's just like, what kind of dreams are you having? Just glaring at him, which is funny. And then Sanji jumps down from the castle. And so that's how they get down. The other ones either fell or were able to get down very easily. But Sanji's got Nami and getting her down safely and everything. And they're talking about, because like we see, so now we're getting a little bit of a different angle here. We see how big the castle is, to a degree, and then we also see off in the distance, we do see what is supposed to be Yggdrasil. It's not. It's this kind of mock-up version of Yggdrasil that's in this like fake world, this fake giant village, made of Legos and bricks and everything like that. And so it's like, it's that type of a thing, but then it's also, we kind of see some of the village in the background, and they're just like, someone's like, careful, this place is falling apart. That's either like Zoro or something commenting on something. And I think it's like Usopp or someone's commenting on the building falling apart, and then Zoro's like, I woke up on the other end of town. I heard a noise and followed it till I found this goof beating up a big rabbit, and that's where, Zoro's like, that's how I found Luffy. He was beating up a giant rabbit, which I'm like, yeah, that tracks. Luffy, oh, I'm in a new place. Ooh, giant animal, let's cook it. And Luffy is nagging Usopp, and he's like, you could have taken that cat lion thing, right, Usopp? So he's just like, come on, Usopp, tell me, you could have taken that thing, right? It's like, it's scolding him. And Usopp's like, it already had me in its mouth when I woke up. I totally lost my cool. I'm like, Usopp, you rarely have your cool. So that's just funny. You rarely have your cool. So Usopp has gone into his detective mode now, and he's like, here's where I'm at. Our threads resemble that of the warriors of Elbath are always wearing what the warriors of Elbath are always wearing. But there's no way they'd have clothes that fit us. We're talking about an island of giants after all. True, you wouldn't expect them to necessarily have a lot of clothes that are designed for humans, such, but it's not like the giants never interact with humans. They know about humans. They interact with them a lot. They just don't necessarily interact with, like, the Marines and with the world government all that much. And so it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that, like, oh, well, they'll have a bunch of other, clothes and everything like that they just might have on hand for, like, humans to wear if they show up in various sizes. So there's that. So I yes, no, there, Usopp. And Nami's looking around and she's like, let's say this is Elbath. Could we have been gigantified? And she's like looking around, she's like touching like all the blocks and everything like that. Then again, this tree is definitely fake. And she's like poking at it and everything. Because, like, things have calmed down. They're, part of the crew has been reunited. They're able to just kind of, like, look around and see what's going on and, like, more observe their surroundings. So that's what's going on here. Zoro's, like, and we're, like, we had seen, like, the picture of, like, Usopp in his, like, overalls with the stripes and everything like that. And, like, now we're, the group shot of, like, all of them, kind of, reuniting. And Zoro's like, I think there's people in town. We won't clear this up without chatting to them. Besides, the area is too vast and we have no idea which way the sea is. Now, given everything that was pointed out in all the reviews and stuff like that I'd watched for the previous chapter where they, they're running around the castle and everything, there is this whole concept where it's like, okay, yes, this place is fake. That's where the, given everything that we see in this chapter, this place is definitely fake. It's artificial. It was made. It's not fully actually like really Elbath. The ones they're going to interact with in a moment are not actually giants. But there are still like these inconsistencies because like Luffy is back to having his axe, and one of the things that people pointed out in regards to like Zoro from last chapter was like him commenting on like finding the crew and finding the ship. And now he keeps, he's like, yeah, and, we got to go to the sea and everything like that. So I'm just like, okay, I don't know. I mean, like, we'll see what happens. And Luffy's like, you're right. Let's head to town. Also, we still don't see Luffy's straw hat. It could very well be hidden underneath the helmet. But it's, given what we're going to find out in a little bit, it's a possibility that the giant who put them here, the sun god, quote unquote, who put them here, may have taken Luffy's hat, and it could be in like the part hidden at the moment, and Luffy is going to end up wanting to find Straw Hat later, find said hat later, and that'll be like maybe like they have to go and get the Straw Hat or something like that, type of a thing. So, and Sanji's like, the others don't seem to be here, and that's regarding to like Robin and the rest of the crew. And Usopp's like, how do you know? And Sanji's like, my radar isn't picking up Robin-chan. Oh, God, Sanji. Which, okay, yes, this radar has been useful at times. It helped save Bonnie at the beginning of the last arc and everything like that, and she was in the giant eddy. But it's also, like, Sanji, still kind of creepy. What if Zoro wasn't around? Well, Sanji wouldn't care if Zoro wasn't around. What if, Chopper? Well, they'll find Chopper in a little bit. But it's like, okay, you assume that the rest of the crew is not there because Robin is not there. What if Luffy was missing? Would you be like, my Luffy radar isn't going off, so he's not close by. So there's that. And I think it's Nami that's like, are you a hound? In regards, it's either Nami or Usopp that's just like, are you a hound? In regards to like Sanji being able to like track whether or not the others are there, or whether or not Robin's there. So like they're getting ready to head off into the town, and they're like, let's just ask about them in town. And it's like, it's time for an adventure. So Luffy's all happy about that. And then I think it's Usopp that's like, why are you so amped up? You realize we know literally nothing about this place, right? And now it's Nami has the comment of, this is such a weird open space, a wide open space, but I can't feel any wind. That's eerie. And that is very much eerie coming from Nami, because of course she's the navigator, plus her like weather sensing power that she has. It's probably like a very, very almost awakened form of observation haki. Unique to her, probably, but that hasn't been confirmed yet. But you get the idea. So, Nami sensing that there's no wind is also like that, well, that's not really a good thing. And Sanji is just like, don't fear, Nami-san, I'm here for you. And I would just look at him and go away. So they are basically off on roleplay. They're basically LARPing. They're being forced to LARP. They're being forced to live action roleplay. Which, I mean, the thing that popped into my brain about this was, yeah, live action role playing and everything like that. But the bit that popped into my brain about this was, so Star Trek, Next Generation, there is the episode where Q, who is this almighty, all-seeing being, omnipresent type being, takes the Next Gen crew, the main cast of them, Picard and all of his, top lieutenants and everything like that, and drops them basically into a world of Robin Hood that he created, and forces them to basically act out the plot of Robin Hood in an attempt to get Picard to admit that he likes the woman that he has made Marion. And I like the episode. I find the episode funny. A lot of people don't like the episode for whatever reason. Sure, whatever. It's funny. So it's like something very similar is here. It's just like, this supposedly all-powerful sun god has taken the Straw Hats, or at least, the a good chunk of them, and forcibly put them into these outfits, and then drop them into this world that they have created, this, diorama that we're going to get to, that they have created, and is using it to like observe them. Plus there's like other people and animals that live in this area already, and like they observe them. So there is kind of that question of like, how exactly, it's not that different from the concept of, what Q did with, Picard and his group. So there's that. But so it's like they're all heading toward the town, and while they're on the way there, they end up running into, well, he's a guy, and he's riding on a giant grasshopper that is kind of tricked out like a motorcycle, a little bit. And this made me think of two things. A, the Rosy Life Riders, the Flying Fish Riders that they encounter just before they get to Sabaody, who then end up helping them, that have, what's his name? We just saw him a little while ago during the message, Duval, that have like Duval as their leader and everything like that. So it's like, it's a tricked out thing. But the other thing that it made me think of was, from Strong World, from the Strong World movie, where, Frankie, like, him, Robin, and Brooke basically like capture, like, I think it's a lobster or a crawfish or something like that. That's like one of the giant animals, and Frankie somehow turns it into a motorcycle. And I'm like, those are the things that popped into my brain for this. But they come across this guy, and they're just like, something's coming, wait a minute. And then it's like this, guy on a giant grasshopper pops up, and he's like, I mean, like, he gotta look pretty awesome. He kind of looks pretty awesome. You got the grasshopper. The grasshopper has, like, a helmet that has, like, the handlebars on it and everything. And he's got a helmet. And he's got, like, a tattoo on his side that could very much be very similar to like us, the Mark of the Sun, that we see that, you know, like Fisher Tiger came up with. Like it clearly has like that kind of, you know, sun-esque motif, and like there might be like another one like on the guy as a guy's shoulder. Plus he does kind of look like a Viking with like that kind of, it's like a motorcycle Viking is what he looks like. He's a biker Viking. And so he, you know, he kind of looks like that, but he's on like a giant grasshopper, which I find hilarious. So he's like, hello there, you must be newcomers. And they're like, oh man, a grasshopper, that's so cool. It's like what several, like probably what like Luffy and Usopp and even like Zoro were thinking. And then Nami and Sanji, we come to the next panel, is just like, they're just like, nope, 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 no way, keep that bug away. Because like Sanji doesn't like bugs. And to be fair, grasshoppers are one of the insects that I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with. They hop around. That's a bunch when I take her on a, you know, WALK, and they, you know, they were around this a bunch of weeks ago when we were off at like one of there's like a wildlife refuge park near Lincoln, and we were out there with like my sister and niece and nephew and my nieces and nephew, and my younger niece is just like jumping every time like a grasshopper jumps by her, and I'm like, they're not gonna hurt you. Grasshoppers are fine. So it's like Sanji doesn't want anything to do with it. Nami doesn't want anything to do with it. They're having the reaction that Misty has in Pokemon whenever bug types show up. And so they're just like, nope, and it's just like Luffy or whoever is just like, who are you, old timer? What is this place? How do you know where our do you know where our crewmates are? And he's just like, that's a lot of questions. Poor guy. And he's just like, my apologies, I'm in too much of a rush to stay and chat. And he's like, just remember, this vast land belongs to the sun god. God? Even the Big Stein Castle, which I help maintain, is in the domain of the deities like the great Iskat. And they're like, oh, someone lives there? And he's like, no, a cat. And it's just, I don't know if Iskat is supposed to be a reference to something specific from Norse mythology, but it might be. But Giant Cat now has a name, at least at the moment. And someone's like, oh, our bad. We kind of whooped that cat. Because, like, Usopp just, like, shoves his hand over Luffy's face, over Luffy's mouth to get him to shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up. And all of that, so it's just like, and the motorcycle Viking is like, to put it simply, this is the land of the gods. And he's just like, he keeps talking, and we're getting the reaction of the Straw Hats as this is happening. And he's just like, now then, I must be off. The needle god must be starving by now. And we see Nami, and she's just like, because she electrocuted a said needle god. Yeah, that's the hedgehog. And he's just like, all that uproar over our ear god being burned really delayed me. And we see, like, Usopp has still got his hand shoved over Luffy's mouth, and Usopp is sweating. And Luffy is, like, maybe trying not to actually say anything, but he's kind of like, because he's Luffy. Because he's Luffy and he doesn't know when to shut up. And then we see Zoro, Sanji, and Nami are all doing, like, the like, nope, we don't know anything. Nope, 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 type of a thing. So they're just like, yeah, no, we don't know anything about that. It's kind of the reaction they're giving. It's the reaction that Luffy gives whenever he's trying to lie, because Luffy cannot lie to save his frickin' life. And everything. And the giant and the motorcycle Viking is also like, if you're hungry, head to town for some fodder rations. I don't know what that is, but whatever. He's like, also, heed this warning. Do not follow this road. Luffy, why not? It's like, you told Luffy to not do something. He is going to do the opposite. Example, wait 2 panels. And he's just like, the rabid guardians protect the sun god's temple beyond this point. No one has ever ventured past there and returned to tell the tale. like, big ominous message. Nami, that wording, take it back before. And Luffy's just like, fidget, 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 and off he goes. Sanji, just Luffy, off runs he goes in the direction he was told not to go in. Don't go that way. Luffy, I'm going that way. Good Lord. So Luffy's going off. And all of the rest of the Straw Hats are like, wait! And even the Viking giant is just, or the Viking motorcycle guy is just like, what the heck? Like, watch Luffy just goes that way. And Usopp is just like, thanks a lot, Gramps. Bye. And he's running off. And Nami's just like, sorry about all this. And she just kind of like winks at him and then is running off. And he's just like, huh? Because he's like, oh, cute girl. And they're just headed up. And then Zoro is already heading that direction. And he's like, rabid guardians, huh? This will be fun is what he's thinking. And then Sanji is just like, you would basically enable each other at this point. Don't you ever think things through? Which is very true. Zoro and Luffy share one brain cell. And it's not even entirely divided between one of them anyway. They literally share it. And Zoro is just like, well, the captain went that way because he wants to go and fight the rabid gods because he was told not to. So we're going to go that way and fight the rabid gods. Like, I love you, Zoro, but please stop. Stop enabling Luffy. And Sanji just like chewing Zoro out for that. And then we cut back to the grasshopper Viking, and he's just like, huh? And he looks over and he sees that like the castle has been like partially destroyed, and he's like, what happened to the castle? It's like, the people you just met are what happened to the castle. So yeah, you're also going to find an electrocuted hedgehog in there, and probably a very angry cat. So there's that. So Luffy is just running full speed because he's Luffy. And he is running full speed, and he's just like, this place reeks of adventure. Didn't you hear him? Rabid guardians, gods. And they're just like, hold up, Luffy, this place is seriously huge. Like, get back here, type of a thing. And I'm just like, they're all running. And it's just like, it's like, can't see any buildings ahead. Huh. Hey, just how long is this freaking road? Wait, look at that castle. Doesn't it look like the other one? And they're all just like, Luffy's running. And he's just like, huh? And he sees what looks like on the road someone else running toward him. And he's like, someone else running this way. They're in Elbaf gear too. Which means Luffy has not fully understood exactly what he's wearing at the moment. As in, like, he doesn't realize that it's, like... He can tell that it's, like, they're wearing a Viking helmet and stuff like that, but he can't quite tell exactly what's going on here. And he's like, whatever, I'll just dodge him. And we get what is literally supposed to be, like, a replay of, like, what happens when, like, Luffy is, like, runs into Brûlé, or when he's trying to fight Brûlé. Sorry, I don't know when I went blurry last. I'm sorry. But, so it's, like, Luffy and... like runs headlong into himself. That is a mirror, so that's a Brûlé reference. Runs into the mirror and just cracks are starting to form in the mirror, and just up. And they're just like, wait, the sky is breaking. So it's just like sky, giant crack in sky, which is not good, and that's kind of spread because like the other people in the village are gonna see it too. And Zoro's like, what the hell is this? And Luffy's like banged into the mirror, and he crashes through the mirror because like we just hear like this huge cracking sound all the way through. And we like the villagers, the Viking villagers are just like, look, the sky, it's coming from the holy temple. No, over there. And they're just like, what's going on? Everything's going to hell. Like, yeah. And then the rest of the Straw Hats that are here get to the edge of this where they can now see what's past the mirror. And they see that there is basically this giant, like, cage type thing on one side that is like, holding the mirror up, and that's like giving this giant perspective on the inside that there is like this endless area behind them. And they're just like, what the? That means unbelievable. And Nami's just like, it's a giant room. And Zoro's like, we can't still be on that huge ship, though. And Usopp is like, this isn't like any of the cabins they had. What's up with this? We're, wire netting, and that's like just there to act like just like another barrier. And so he's just like, I'll bet there's genuine giants this way. This has to be. This is this the whole? Is this some? Is this place some kind? Is this whole place some kind of a pet cage, which is just sad? And like they're looking out into this room where it has like this table on it that has like a sewing machine on it, and we see all these other like bricks, Lego looking bricks all over the place. And like there's a sewing machine and cloth and all this other stuff that's sitting there. And with this big, that's still like a giant sized table. And then we hear this is the worst. Wait, guys, are you there? Was that noise you? Help me! And they're like, what? And they look, and it's Chopper. Yay, Chopper. We found Chopper. And he's just like, I'm so glad to see you, because he's just like crying his eyes out, which is fair. And they get onto the table, and like Zoro just like easily rips off like whatever steel collar type thing was holding Chopper. He's like ripped that off. And now Nami is just like hugging Chopper, and she's like, there, Chopper, everything is gonna be okay. And he's like, the collar was made of steel, I couldn't get it off, I was sure I was gonna die. Because Chopper's just crying. And she's like, you owe me for this hug. Huh? I was like, he is terrified, Nami. Do not try to make Chopper pay for a hug. And I think it's Zoro that is is it? Yeah, I think it's Zoro that took it's Zoro, because I see his swords. He's like, this is clearly a giant's room, so what's with all the human-sized clothing? We must have been dressed up like dolls. And Usopp, in response to Nami saying Chopper owes her for the hug, is just like, that's cold, you were scared earlier too. And he's just like, still, this is some kind of some fine craftsmanship. This sun god must be very skilled. Because like Usopp's like looking over like the clothing type stuff that is sitting there that was made by the sun god that he uses to like dress the people that he puts into his village. Their village. We don't know if it's a he or a she, but their village. And Luffy is jumped down from the table, and he's like looking around and like finding all of the blocks, and he's like, there's so many of these blocks. And Sanji is just like, that whole country was made out of them. That explains the horrible scent from where we were grilling up that rabbit. It must have been all the burning plastic. And of course, part of the thing with that is like this, basically what they have put, what the Straw Hats were put in, what these ones were all put in, is like this giant diorama type of a thing that this giant built. And like, okay, as a person who built like dioramas and play sets for like their toys and stuff like that, I have appreciation for that and for like the level of craftsmanship and detail that this giant clearly put into this. I do not, however, condone the keeping of tiny humans and animals in this cage against their will. Well, okay, the animals are like a little more free range, I guess, in regards to like what they can do, because like the humans aren't gonna hurt them, but like the humans are clearly not being kept there, willingly. In that regard. So it's just like, yeah, no, I get where you're coming from for the diorama thing. Great craftsmanship, wonderful, really good. Don't trap people in a giant cage like this. Don't do that. But like, yeah, so it's like there's that comment that like, Sanji's like, that weird smell would have been like the plastic that horrible scent was the plastic burning. I have smelled plastic burning. It smells horrible. Yes. And it's also like Nami mentioned that there's no wind in this diorama because like it's a giant enclosed space, and like there wouldn't be any wind because like they don't need weather. They, like the clouds are like painted or fake or something like that, and they just like either move around or they don't move at all. And then like their water or their rain or whatever would be something that like the sun god would bless them with like just, making sure that they had flowing water and everything like that and whatever to like feed their, they don't have crops, but they have rations type of a thing. So there's that. But it's like there's no wind in here. So yeah, there would have been like this just horrible scent just like staying around you that whole time while you're, dealing with like the cooking of the rabbit. And they're like, wait, it's see-through now, because like they turn and they look at the cage from the outside looking in. And it's basically the cage is surrounded by, or at least this side of the cage is surrounded by a two-way mirror. So it's basically like what's the mirror that's like used in police dramas and stuff like that, where they have them like the person's in the interrogation room and they're in the interrogation room and there's the mirror on the other side, and then on the other side of the mirror is actually like other agents or whoever, a witness or whatever on the other side of the mirror watching in to like watch the reaction of the person who's being interrogated. So it's like it's that type of a two-way mirror. And they're just like, it's like normal glass on this end, and they're like, what kind of magic mirror is this? And I'm just like, Disney magic mirror, throw in the joke. I will make the joke because I am a Disney dork. And Sanji, this is not needed. Sanji has perverted moment where he's like, Nami-san, I volunteer to clean the ladies' room on the ship late. And Nami just like kicks him because he's gone pervert. And I'm assuming his intention is to want to install a two-way mirror there. And I would be like, I would not allow Sanji to do that, and then I would check the fucking mirror afterwards anyway. I'm far enough into the video, I can swear. And so she kicks him. And then Zoro is like, so this is some kind of sick hobby? The giant likes to watch the animals and people trapped in that block world? And Zoro is not happy about this. And Usopp is like, that's creepy, but this confirms we're on Elbaf, right? This is a real giant's room, so there must be a real giant island out there. And Luffy's like, for real? Heck yeah! So Luffy's happy. And Nami, being the reasonable one that she is just like, how can you be sure? Really, all we can really say is a giant's behind this. And Nami is correct. I mean, like, because Saul did not come from Elbaf, and he is a giant, so there's other giants out there that do not live on Elbaf. Plus, there's several of the giants that are part of the Marines at this point in time, like what we, saw during Marineford. There were all those giants that were like, I think they were all like vice admirals or something like that. And they probably have like, giant-sized rooms somewhere in like either their own private homes or something like that they use. And stuff like that. And it's not like a giant couldn't have found like an island of their own and just like built a giant house there or something like that is like giant sized house and then had this diorama there, to be fair. And Chopper is just like, we should escape. Where are the others? It'd be bad if the giant came back and caught us here. And like Chopper has been put into like, Elbaf, clothes as well. He's got like the helmet and, robe, cloak type thing on him. And Usopp's just like, why not head back inside and squeeze the two townspeople for some more information? They seem a little weird, but it's better to face them than risk a confrontation with a giant. Hey, are you listening, Luffy? And I like this cut. This is going to be a great cut that they do in the anime. Because it's like Usopp is just like, very rightfully so. It's like, let's go talk to the townsfolk and see what they have to say. And he's just like, right, Luffy, are you even listening? And then we cut to Luffy and he's just like, yeah, I just thought I'd blow this guy away first. And giant snake has appeared. Usopp, Chopper, and Nami are all just like, ah! They're just like, go for it. Get rid of the giant snake. And Luffy is like ready to punch said giant snake. And Nami looks down and she sees that there are now these like giant rats that are there, or mice. They kind of look more like the way Oda draws rats than mice. Giant rats that are down there. And then above them is this giant crow that has shown up. And the crow has like a skull on its head, like a skull helmet or something like that. And Sanji's like, and above us, a crow. And like, so it's like we see like the Straw Hats are like from the angle is like surrounded by like the giant crow, the snake, the rats. And it's just like, don't tell me these are those rabid temple guardians. How is this a temple though? I'm still, and you know, people are, you know, blah, 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 saying stuff. And then Luffy's like, I'm still full from the rabbit. So I'm just going to send these guys flying. It's like, sure. I have antlers. I have antlers. But, so, and now we cut outside of the room into what is clearly like this actual giant house slash possibly castle, given the size of kind of like the structure bit that we kind of see. And we see this being walking through, and they are wearing a deer skull and deer antlers and like ruffles types, and like the clothes they're wearing are very androgynous, so could be male, could be female, we don't know yet, we'll find out later. And they're holding this giant staff that like has like, you know, sun symbol on top of it. So this is like the deity that is supposed to be like this sun god that they've been hearing about. Also, kind of the description that popped into my head was kind of like Elias Ainsworth from you know, the you know, Ancient Magus' Bride. And he, you know, this giant, this sun god, hears this noise and kerfuffle going on inside of like their diorama room, and he, or they, we don't know if it's a he or she, but they, you know, are hearing like, you know, don't play around, guys. If you don't finish them off before the sun god gets here. And yeah, so there's like, and then we hear, wait, Luffy, that's overkill. Hey, I'm not the one who busted the fireplace and let the flames spread. So it's just like, and there's like smoke coming from under the door. So there's fire now consuming part of this room because reasons. And like all of this is happening, and like the, you know, the antler head is just kind of like, gotta get into the room. And he, you know, and they open the door. And this reminded me, because, you know, memes, is like, reminds me of the meme where it's just like the guy comes back from getting pizza and then just like everything around him is just all chaos. Stuff's on fire, these people are fighting, this is on fire, all that stuff. It's kind of like the meme that I thought is like what I thought of, or like this moment where it's like they walk in and they're just like, everything is on fire. The snake is fighting Luffy. There's the crow that I think is being fought by like Sanji or Zoro. And then it's just like, and the sun god is shouting, wait, it can't be my beloved temple. And Luffy has gone gear fifth and he's laughing. And, you know, Usopp looks over and he happens to see the sun god. And he's shouting at Luffy, Luffy, this is bad. The sun god's back. And he's like, let's run for it. And Luffy kind of turns, and I think Zoro took out the giant crow, who is the sun god shouts and calls the crow Mugen, which a lot of these gods, god creatures, are kind of references to stuff from, you know, Norse mythology. Like for the giant snake is a reference to Jormungandr, the giant, the world snake. That, you know, encompasses the world and is supposed to fight Thor and everything like that during Ragnarok. So it's like, you know, that's what the giant snake represents. The crow is a representation of the two crows that are like Odin's eyes that he sends out to observe the world and to, you know, watch things and everything like that. So that's like their reference there. I tried to find anything for like a rabbit reference to Norse mythology, but I couldn't. And I don't think I found anything about hedgehogs in Norse mythology. Cats in Norse mythology are sacred to Freya. And they're, because like I think her chariot is like pulled by cats or something like that. So there's like that reference there for like, you know, the cat. In that regard, but. And so it's like, it's referencing that stuff. And again, it's like there's stuff where it's just like, you know, if there doesn't end up being like a Ragnarok section that happens during this chapter, or during this arc, during the Elbath arc, you know, it might be like it's callback to this type of stuff. It would be like, well, the sun god had that, and they had that, and they had that, and they had these crows and everything else like that. And then the giants are like, yeah, those are based off, you know, Jormungandr and, you know, blah, 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 whatever else. So Luffy kind of like rears back, and he prepares a Gumu Gumu no Booming Dawn pistol, and he just punches the snake. And I feel sorry for this snake, because, you know, Kaido had this done to them, and now Kizaru has had something very similar done to them, with both of them going through their heads. He has now punched the snake, and the snake is definitely down for the count. And the sun god shouts, Hilmengandr. Again, it's the reference to Jormungandr, the world serpent, and Luffy's just like laughing as he runs back into like the cage area, the diorama area that they're in. And he runs back in there, and they're just like, hurry, Luffy. And they're just like, that giant was huge. And I mean, like, the Straw Hats have been around big giants. Like, they've, you know, Dorian Broggy. I mean, like, I think Broggy, one of them is supposed to be like on the smaller side for a giant, but they're still considered a giant. And like, you know, Luffy has dealt with Big Mom and Kaido, and like they dealt with Atlas in the last arc and everything like that. And of course they, you know, with how big Atlas was, but then they also dealt with like how big like the Gorosei were while they were fighting with them at various points, clashing with them. But it is kind of this question of, like, the biggest giant that we have seen in the series is San Juan Wolf, but that is also because he has the you know, like the giant fruit, so he's a giant that can get even bigger. And he gets so big. So there's like that, but then there's like other giants that we've seen, you know, Dorian Broggy and Hyrudine, and, you know, like the ones that are on his crew. Some of the giants that were like, you know, Uemo and Kashi and stuff like that, you know, Mount Fallbeard and Mountain Beard and everything like that, Lord Fallbeard and Lord Mountain Beard and everything like that from Big Mom's flashback. Plus, there's just, like, you know, Oars. You know, how big Oars was when the Straw Hats fought him. Plus, like, all the numbers and everything like that were at Wano that they had to deal with at Onigashima for how big they were. But it is kind of this question of, how big is this sun god? Like, how tall are they? And, like, we don't get a full reference shot here for, like, how big they are, and, like, later on Oda will end up doing something that'll be like, yeah, the sun god is, you know, the sun god character, whoever they are, you know, this is how tall they actually are. And, like, I think in one of the shots for, like, the giant's foot, I mean, like, they kind of have heels, so that's just going to make them even a little bit taller. Plus, you throw in the fact that they have, you know, this giant, you know, antler helmet thing on, antler mask thing on, and that's going to make them look even bigger. So we'll see how that ends up going for how big that giant is. And, like, you know, so Luffy's landing and kind of going out of his, you know, Nika form, his Gear 5th form. And they're like, this is messed up. And Zoro looks, and, you know, he's like, kind of like senses something coming, and it's the giant cat that they defeated before has now shown up because it followed them. And it's, you know, roaring at them and being angry and everything like that. And they just, like, smack it. Someone smacks it. I don't know who, but someone smacks it. And it's, you know, growling and, you know, mumbling at them, because they are now riding on top of the cat as it runs away. And Chopper's like, it says you'll pay for this. And Nami's like, yeah. Anyway, look at this. And she's like, holds up something. She's like, I couldn't find any proper loot, and she pulls up a map, which of course Nami loves maps. We don't get to really see the map, but we get a map. And she's like, I found a map. And they're like, oh, that's great. And, you know, and she's like, it's the blueprint for the Block Country. And I was like, oh, yay. So it's like, what we see is, we cut, you know, Zoro's like, he senses, you know, something, and he, you know, his observation, plus he's just watching, is, you know, it's like, here they come. And we, you know, we turn, and like, this is, you know, double page spread to finish out the chapter, where we have the sun god seems to have gotten inside of the diorama, And while they are still very large, they are not as large as they were. Now, again, perspective shot here for how big this thing is compared to how big the Straw Hats are right now, riding on the cat and everything like that, with like them being closer and the giant, the sun god being further away in the background. Perspective shot. And the sun god is like shouting at them, and it's just like, how dare you defile my beloved country? And he's just like, the sun god is like chasing after them. And Nami is just like, if we keep going straight, we'll burst through the mirror on the other side. We'll be free if we smash the wall behind it too. And it's like, great, let's get out of here. And so they're just like, charging through, and they're getting to the village. And so the villagers are now seeing, their sun god chasing through this group. And it looks like the sun god picked up a shield of some kind, because they still have their staff with like the giant sun on top, and they seem to have picked up a shield that has like the sun symbol on it as well. And they're just like running, and the villagers are like, oh, the sun god is incensed. And the sun god is like glaring down at them, and it's just like, I won't let you escape. And then it's just like the editor's comment, the adventure never slows down. And that's the end of this, and there is no break next week, so we'll have another chapter next week, so yay. It's like, I don't know if there were any other, like, I didn't notice any other, because to be fair, beyond like the Nami's sword kind of disappearing and reappearing last chapter, I didn't personally notice whether or not there were other inconsistencies in the chapter, beyond some of the other bits that were pointed out to me before I reviewed it, for like, Luffy going into like using a wrong attack in the wrong gear type of a thing. Using an attack from one gear in a different gear. But it's like, I didn't notice anything specifically inconsistent here necessarily, beyond the fact of, unless there's still like those, inconsistencies with like Zoro being very concerned about finding the ship and finding the ocean and stuff like that. Type of a thing, or even trying to figure out where Luffy's straw hat is, because there is kind of this thought of like, this guy may not know who they are. This, like, the sun god character, a lot of people are going to say, oh, he's Loki, oh, he's going to be our villain for this arc. He just might be this minor thing that they have to deal with first, and then they'll get around to having to meet Loki and find the rest of the crew and everything else like that. And we may cut away from this next chapter and cut to where like Robin and her group are, with Dory and Broggy and everything else, and cut to that and have them, do whatever, get to Elbath, and then they're like, okay, well, we got to find the rest of the crew, so how are we going to do that? So while there is still a good chance that part of this world might be affected by an illusion, given the fact of like the inconsistencies in last chapter may be affecting that, and the sun god may have a devil fruit that allows them to affect that type of a thing, like Uta's does, or there is another devil fruit that like can mess with people's dreams and stuff like that. And even Muntor's devil fruit for his book fruit. Once you're inside of one of the books, it does affect like your perception of what's going on around you. So there's the possibility like there being other devil fruits that deal with like illusions and stuff like that is very, is perfectly on the table for like the sun god to have one of those devil fruits, or have, something else, someone else around them has one of these devil fruits and they're indulging them. Like this could be a child giant, who just like adores the sun god myths and legends and stuff like that from Elbath, and is just like, I want to make this diorama type of a thing, and they use that, or there could be something else more nefarious going on in the background. We'll see what Oda ends up wanting to do with that. But there could be some more nefarious things going on, and what may end up happening is just, it could just end up being that, this is just like this first little minor thing that the Straw Hats have to get through, kind of like at Sabaody, like I mentioned, because I mentioned Sabaody earlier. It's like they don't, like their first kind of thing that they have to deal with before they get to Sabaody, before they really get into that part of the adventure and everything like that, is they have to deal with Duval and his group. And, this might be they have to deal with like this sun god scenario going on here and like free these townspeople and everything like that, because there is this irony with the fact of like, all of us who have been reading One Piece and watching One Piece, ever, some stuff was, revealed with like, the sun god of liberation and everything like that with Nika, that there is this concept that like, that represents this freedom and liberation and everything else like that, that's, is something that very connects with Luffy just because of the way that he is as a person. But the fact that this being who is calling themselves the sun god is ruling over this domain that is literally a giant cage holding in all of these, all these people that have been turned into like the villagers for this town, and like they have to live by the sun god's laws and everything else like that, is very much this like twisted way of looking at it. And given the fact that like, Dory and Broggy, just in the previous arc when they were helping Luffy fight against Saturn and stuff, like they comment that like, yes, Luffy looks, he looks like our sun god and everything else like that. Like he does have the visage of that. And this sun god does not have that visage. He does not look the way that Luffy looks like Nika and everything like that, with like, the jumping in front of the sun and everything else like that. So it is taking this version of sun god Nika that like we've kind of learned to associate with like Luffy and with Joy Boy type of a thing, most likely. And the sun god Nika themselves as this like this creature of freedom, this deity of freedom and liberation and all this other stuff. That this giant has, is corrupting that and is like literally trapping people for their own amusement. Against their will, whether or not they know that that's where they are. That's also just like, you can't go past this and you can't go past that. Now this thing's running through their town with, following the cat that got beat up and has subsequently been like bandaged up. So I'm assuming this was bandaged up by the giant on the grasshopper, got to the castle, looked around, found the cat, and like bandaged up the cat, and then the cat's like, screw this, I'm gonna go and get those guys that electrocuted me and dropped a hedgehog on me and then beat me up. Fair enough on his point. I would too. Well, no, I don't think I would. I would be too scared. I would be Usopp in that situation. Nope, I'm good. I don't need to go after them. I'm good. I got beat up. I'm fine. Please don't hurt me again. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this ends up, coming out in regards to that. And again, it's like how many of the things in the last chapter that were like inconsistencies with like this changed and that went back to that went back and forth and everything like that, with like the axe to the sword, back to the axe type of a thing for Luffy and stuff like that. And like how much of that is going to be either just it was way over analyzed because like Oda just either didn't catch those things in the first place, or it's going to get pointed out to Oda that he either made those mistakes or his assistants made those mistakes, and he's going to work that into the story somehow because he's done that before with mistakes that he's made. Where he'll just like, well, I'll just work that into the story. I can work with this. So we'll see what happens, or it's planned, what was not planned. And that'll be like, again, like when the Tonko bonds come out, a year from now or whatever, when the Tonko bonds for these chapters come out, for like specifically for 1127, like how many of those mistakes are going to have been fixed in the Tonko bond? And how many are still going to be there is going to be like this big hint for this was changed, but this wasn't, and that was changed, but that wasn't. But by then we'll know how much of this is like an illusion or manipulated or something like that, perception filter type of a thing. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.